confident that participants will be immensely benefited and from these deliberations of this webinar. I can see Commander Dr. Bhaskar Bhandarkar sir has also joined. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, I can listen to you.
Yeah, okay. Good evening, sir. Chairman Commander Dr. Bhandarkar sir has very enthusiastically, he has taken this Hercules task to bring all the distinguished personality together and organize this webinar. Bhandarkar sir, Chairman of Marine Division, he has received his BTech from JNU Delhi. He's a Master of Engineers from Pune University. Also completed his BSc and MBA in Operations and Marketing from Nagpur University. He is a doctorate of Birla Institute of Technology and a gold medalist from NCDC, Ministry of Home Affairs. Dr. Bhandarkar has got 40 years of experience in marine engineer and academics. His prestigious assignments include consultant with NITIE, Government of India, that is under Ministry of Human Resource Development, Chairman Institution of Industrial Engineering for a record of 8 years, Director General, Indian Institutions for Industrial Engineering, Mumbai, Managing Editor for Industrial Engineering Journal. He's a member of Technical Committee for IRS, that is Indian Register of Shipping, and MTech Examiner for Mumbai University and SVNIT, Surat. His professional acumen and leadership has urged him as a board member of Asia Pacific IE Management Systems Society, APIEMS Japan. He is a fellow of Institution of Engineers by Institute of Marine Engineers, FIMRE, Industrial Engineering Operations Management Society, and Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering. Dr. Bhandarkar has received many prestigious awards such as Lillian Gilbert Award, Ramaswamy Award, Coal India Productivity Award, Shiksha Bharati Award, Best Educationist Award, Distinguished Engineer Award, and Distinguished Service Award. There are awards constituted in the honor of Dr. Bhandarkar. Those are Commander Bhandarkar Visionary Leadership Award. This award is issued to CEOs with outstanding leadership and visionary industry building. Dr. Bhandarkar Award for First Merit Student in Industrial and Production Engineer at VJTI, Mumbai University, and also at Nagpur University. So I would like to invite Commander Bhandarkar for his chairman's address.
Thank you, Engineer Mahesh Patil.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Respected Dr. Hemant Thackeray, the visionary president of Institution of Engineers, who has devoted 40 years of quality life for the promotion of engineering in India. We are fortunate to have him as our president, and he has contributed immensely to the growth of this wonderful institution which is celebrating 100 years. We are honored by your presence, respected President, sir. Respected Commodore Johnson, the visionary and the expert on maritime history of India, Commodore Sanjay Tiwari, who is expert in the history of Mumbai, and he has published many books. Our past chairman, Engineering Keshav Varkhetji, who has created a huge infrastructure, roads and railway for the benefit of Navi Mumbai. Our moderator, our compare, Engineer Mahesh Patil, my friend from Institution of Engineers and past Honorary Secretary, Dr. Nimkar, distinguished participants, members of Institution of Engineers and Institution of Marine Engineers, our council members present here. I can see many council members present here to encourage this participation. Good evening to all and very warm welcome. As we know, India has got the glorious maritime history to go to, which ranges back 3,000 years back. The famous dockyard of Indus culture at Lothal is the testimony to this. During Rigveda, we believed that sea and oceans are the benefit of mankind. Shano Varuna was the mantra given to us during Rigveda. During Ashoka time, Indian culture was spread to Sri Lanka and the Far Eastern countries. In 13th century, the glorious period of Indian maritime history was during Chera, Pallava and Chalukya's time. But during the British rule, efforts were made to destroy this wonderful culture, wonderful practices and wonderful maritime industries. The textbook were fabricated and we were made to believe that we have to follow the ruling party, ruling the countries. There were attempts made to kill our confidence, our industry. But like phonics, we came up. There is a beautiful saying, Mishra यूनान वो रूमा सब मिट गए जहां से बाकी रहा है अब तक नामो निशा हमारा क्या बात है हस्ती मिट्टी नहीं हमारी सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे जा हमारा. Well, ladies and gentlemen, under the leadership of our visionary president, Marine Engineering Division Board is striving to promote our maritime industry. And in this direction, during last 1 year, we have arranged many innovative programs on various discipline areas concerning marine engineering. We are proud to celebrate Navy Week.
Dr. K.M. Godbole, sir. Can you please mute? Sir, can you request organizers to mute Dr. K.M. Godbole, sir? Maybe, yeah, right. I think Bhandarkar sir is also dropped out from the meeting.
Mahesh Patil, we can continue. He will join afterwards.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Yeah.
I would like to welcome Dr. Hemant Thakre, sir. He is a FIE. I was elected as the president of Institution of Engineers India for the session 2021-22 during the 710th council meeting of institution held on September 25th, 2021 at Lucknow. Dr. Thakre is a graduate in civil engineer, postgraduate in structural engineering from Vishveshwaraya National Institute of Technology, Nagpur. Is awarded a PhD in civil engineering by RTM Nagpur University. He has joined Yashwantrao Chavan College of Engineering, Nagpur, a flagship institute of Mege Group of Institution, MGI, in 1984, and was a professor of civil engineer and executive director technical. Dr. Thackeray is also associated with Institution of Engineers India since 80s. He was honorary secretary of Nagpur Local Center for 2 terms. He was the organizing secretary for the 12th Indian Engineering Congress held at Nagpur. Dr. Thackeray is also associated with various social, educational, sports, and cultural organizations in and around Nagpur, and was the president of Amateur Boxing Association of Nagpur district. He has over 35 years of rich experience in engineering education field and is currently working with CTL as a director and chief operating officer. Prior being appointed as director and COO, he served as president of business unit head for education software and solution business. Dr. Thackeray is a dedicated soldier of IEI for more than 35 years, having a long distinguished innings with selfless service and total devotion. So I would like to invite Dr. Thackeray sir for presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Mahesh Patel, shall I proceed?
Yeah, yes, sir.
There was calls going on regarding the inauguration of our Indian Engineering Congress, 37th Engineering Congress, scheduled to be held in Chennai. Therefore, I was on another call. Thank you.
Sir.
Thanks for the nice introduction. Panelists of the session, Commodore Sanjay Tiwari, Business Head CISB Technologies Private Limited, Engineers Saptarshi Basu, Marine Consultant, Technocrat and Strategist and General Secretary, Maritime Research and Development Society. Moderator of the session, Commodore Dr. Johnson Oracle, Indian Navy veteran and internationally certified Maxwell Leadership Growth Coach. Vice President VB Singh, who is attending this webinar. Commander Bhandarkar, Bhaskar Bhandarkar, Dynamic Chairman of Marine Engineering Division Board. Mr. Krishna Rao M. Godbole, Chairman of Navi Mumbai Local Center. Past Chairman of Navi Mumbai Local Center, Shri Varkhedkarji, Keshav Varkhedkarji. Other council members who are attending, committee members of Navi Mumbai Local Center as well as Maharashtra State Center, and dear attendees. I consider it a great opportunity for all of us to be a part of this technical webinar on the theme Glorious Maritime Heritage of India, being organized today by one of the vibrant centers of IEA, that is Navi Mumbai Local Center, which was earlier Belapur Local Center, and led by a galaxy of stalwarts, starting from Shri S.G. Pingre, Shri A.B. Karbir, Shri S. Deshpande, P.S. Ambike, A.R. Kattiji, Dr. M.B. Dagaukar, V.C. Kamble, P.N. Tandon, J.N. Mistry. The webinar is being organized under the aegis of Marine Engineering Division Board of IEM. The Institution of Engineers, the largest multidisciplinary professional body of engineers, has always been in the forefront of providing valuable inputs to the government for making policy decisions, especially on the issues related to social development, disaster mitigation, and addressing to the global crisis through engineering solutions, etc. IAI have its global presence by representing India in several international bodies such as World Mining Congress, the Federation of Engineering Organizations, the Commonwealth Engineers Council, the Federation International Debutant, and the Federation of Engineering Institutions of South and Central Asia. It also has bilateral agreements with a number of professional societies across the globe. IAI holds the International Professional Engineers Register for India under the Global International Professional Engineering Alliance. The effort of the institution has always been to keep its members informed and updated about the latest engineering and technological developments occurring in national and international arena through organizing technical events on emerging topics. India has a rich maritime heritage, and the earliest reference to the maritime activities is contained in the Rig Veda. Indian mythology has numerous episodes pertaining to the ocean, the sea, and the rivers, with belief that mankind has benefited from the wealth of seas and ocean. There is plenty of evidence derived from Indian literature, art, sculptures, painting, and archaeology to establish existence of Indian maritime traditions. A study of maritime reveals that the Indian subcontinent exercised supremacy over the Indian Ocean from very earlier times. Indians took to the sea for trade and commerce until 16th century. Our country witnessed peaceful seaborne commerce, cultural and traditional exchange between countries. The Indian Ocean has always been regarded as an area of great significance, and India is central to this ocean. India has a long tradition of indigenous seafaring, which is well attested from the late Catholic period to the latest medieval period. Seafarers became the conduit through which Indian culture and religious traditions seeped into territories beyond the frontiers. To this end, this webinar is being organized involving experts from maritime sector to discuss and highlight the pertinent issues of Indian maritime legacy. The deliberations on these issues are expected to provide us more insights and leave us enriched. I hope that the discussions during the webinar will encompass all facets of the subject holistically, involving all the stakeholders. We are all eager to hear from the experts on this emerging topic, and I hope everybody will get enlightened by their presentations. I wish the webinar a grand success. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Thakre sir, for your meticulous records and strong belief in our heritage. I would like to go back to Commander Bhaskar Bhandarkar. Sir, you got dropped out, so would you like to complete?
No, I have done my part. Now you proceed as per the normal procedure.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for the evening. So among us, we have Commodore Dr. Johnson Odakal, sir. He is designated as Indian Navy veteran and internationally certified Maxwell Leadership Growth Coach. Commodore Dr. Johnson Odakal, his professional seafaring journey commenced in November 1982 on board T.S. Rajendra, the training ship Rajendra, 39 years ago, and served the Indian Navy for the last 34 years. He is a critical thinker, enabler, and has been engaged in advanced multidimensional operations, training, and strategic leadership in the maritime dimension. He has navigated a voyage of institutional building work and leadership assignments. He is the author of Timeless Wake, the legacy of Royal Indian Navy in World War II, and an acknowledged expert on global maritime perspectives and India's maritime heritage. An internationally certified leadership coach, speaker for an organization based in Florida, USA. His leadership and operational accreditations. Certified as Maxwell Leadership Coach, speaker, licensed international curriculum and content, interviewing officer for SSB, Service Selection Board, International Advanced Leadership Course at HIAL, USA, Naval Higher Command Officer, Military Staff and Operation Course, Specialized Course in Navigation, Operations, and Aircraft Directions. Dr. Johnson's educational profile: he is holding a PhD in Civics and Politics through University of Mumbai. Thesis titled Effective Governance of Multilateral Maritime Military Operations, Implications of Contemporary International Politics. He is holding an MPhil in Maritime Operations, International Relations from the College of Naval Warfare under University of Mumbai. A MSc in Defense and Strategic Studies from Defense Services Staff College under Madras. MSc in Nautical Science and Tactical Operations from Navigation Operations Aircraft Directions School under Cochin University, and also holding a Certificate of Competency as second mates foreign going in Mercantile Marine issued by Mercantile. So I would like to hand over this forum to Commodore Odokal sir for the further proceedings. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Patil. And as a mariner in a hurry, I'm hoping to compress my available 10 minutes to 2-3 minutes so we can get more time to the speakers. But greetings to Honorable Dr. Thackeray, President IEI. Thanks to the past president, Dr. Keshav Varkedkarji, all the other distinguished luminaries. Special greetings to Commander Bhandarkar, who has put this plan together, and to my fellow panelists. What I plan to do is, between the introduction and my opening remarks, I'm going to just combine to present just two ideas, and I'm going to immediately hand over to Commodore Sanjay Tiwari, the first. So allow me to just share my screen, and I trust that is visible. That's the theme today, Glorious Maritime Heritage. And I've put the subtitle, India, an Island of Innovation and Ideas. Maybe if someone remembers this long enough, I'll answer in a question why I called it an island. Because you would wonder we are a peninsula and not an island. And the trick is to think about the water bodies. I want to flash this quote by Admiral Jayant Ganpat Nadkarni, ship number 776 in T.S. Dufferin, and the 14th Chief of Naval Staff of Indian Navy. And he said this quote in 2007, when God broke off a part of Southern Africa, sailed it up the Indian Ocean, and attached it to the underbelly of Asia, he gave this country one of the most strategic locations any nation could wish for. He unfortunately forgot to inhabit it with a predominantly maritime-minded people. And let me just stop sharing over there. If based on time, I'll just come back. The reason I flashed that quote is that speaker after speaker mentioned this very important date of 3000 BCE. And I want to put before this audience, our maritime tradition is 100 million years from the formation of the country itself in the geographical segment. So it's a different, I call it the geological maritime history of India. So I go a bit more scientific temperament. Another line, the second idea, I am outnumbered by engineers. I am a non-engineer. My apologies to this August gathering, but I am a great lover of maths, physics, and geography. So that took me to the nautical field. And having failed to qualify the IIT joint entrance test in 1982, it was really interesting that in 2016, I was addressing the IIT Gandhinagar, and the director was sitting there, and I said exactly that. So many years ago, I failed to qualify the JEE, but I'm so honored that all of you are listening very intently to me. and he sat unmoved for the next 45 minutes. So that's basically to say the maritime sector is something that just brings all of us together. And we have a mix of engineers, marine engineers, and the cohort of people available. We have two very illustrious and distinguished speakers in our midst. I'm going to introduce the first speaker, and I believe I have managed to save about a couple of minutes for you from what we delayed, and I will go ahead. Our first panelist of distinguished faculty is Commodore Sanjay Tiwari, a very distinguished Indian naval veteran who was commissioned much before me into the Indian Navy in 1981, trained as an electrical and weapons engineer, served on a range of platforms, including the old aircraft carrier Vikrant, the erstwhile Brahmaputra, and on a series of proud ships called Rajput, Rana, and Ranvijay. He's been in various headquarters. But I think, and there are many other elements of his being a mountaineer, a trekker, a fascinating enthusiast in heritage. But he has spent a long time at the Naval Dockyard, Mumbai, which is a piece of fabulous history and heritage. We forget in the midst of all the handling of technology and workshop that that's a center. So today, of course, he writes, but a lot of people have been benefited by the heritage walks that he organized and the work that he did to cement the legacy of heritage. So, Commodore Sanjay Tiwari, the screen is yours. My only request is if you also shave off a couple of minutes from your 30 minutes, I think we will get more time to discussion. I hand over the screen to you.
Thank you, Commodore Johnson, for that introduction. And yes, I'll certainly try to shave off as much time as I can. But before I commence, may I extend my sincere thanks to the Institution of Engineers, in particular, old colleague, Commander Bhaskar Bhandarkar. And I would also like to convey my best wishes to Mr. Keshav Varkhedkar, the immediate past chairman, Dr. Hemant Thackeray, the president of the IEI, along with the Dr. Mahesh Patel, who's also an eminent speaker and from the Samudra Institute. With that, may I just, when we talk about heritage, a lot of people talk about heritage as though we are only talking about old buildings, which is not actually the fact, because heritage is contained in various things. It could be a song, it could be a poetry, it could be some medals, buildings, anything. Now, each of these is significant because each has a story to tell. And the story is significant because it tells you how you got here. So when we talk about the maritime history of India, I won't go into the deep past. I'll only talk about around the last 300 years because that's what I'm familiar with. So when we, in this last 300 years, there's been one significant organization that has influenced not only the current character of the Indian Navy, but also ship repair, shipbuilding in India in general. So I would like to give you a quick glimpse into the Naval Dockyard, Mumbai, which today is one of the oldest military organizations in India. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's visual.
All right, fine, thank you. So I just want to give you a glimpse into the Naval Dockyard of Mumbai, which started out in 1735. So it's been close to 300 years. And it's certainly the oldest continuously operating industrial unit in India. So, as Johnson Saab rightly pointed out, it has been my proud privilege to have served in this organization. Now, this is an old map of Bombay. So the first Europeans who landed in Bombay were the Portuguese, who came in about 1509. They landed in Mahim. So Bombay then was a collection of small 7 islands, largely uninhabited, and they were under the Sultan Bahadur Shah of Gujarat. So in 1534, after the Treaty of Bassein, the islands came to the Portuguese. The Portuguese defeated the Sultan's forces, and they eventually forced him to sign this treaty. So what they got was the islands that you can see on the screen here, and so they handed it over to at least Girgaum Island was handed over to a Portuguese physician who set up a small manor house, which is approximately in that position. The house was lightly fortified, but it had a very good position because it was on a spur of land that was jutting into the sea, and it commanded the 2 bays on either side. So this eventually grew into a small fort known variously as the English fort Bombay Castle and now INS Angre. So in 1612, the British defeated the Portuguese at the Battle of Savali Hole, and they set up their warehouse in Surat. But Surat was vulnerable to attacks, and after 2 attacks by the great Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, they realized it was time to move out of Surat and look for a safer place in the North Konkan. So they had long coveted these islands of Bombay because of its sheltered anchorage, sheltered harbor and deep water anchorages. But the Portuguese would not part with the islands of Bombay. Luckily, in 1662, the English king, King Charles II, he got married to a Portuguese princess, and the islands came as part of the marriage treaty. So eventually, the British Crown passed them down to the East India Company for a small token rent, and the English East India Company added fortifications to the manor house. And of course, this map is much later. This is of 1750. But if you can just imagine, the only thing being there is that Bombay Castle and nothing else there. The part in the background, all this was not there. So it became it became a good place to carry out ship repairs on both sides, on the 2 bays on this side and this side. And what was being done was that they would pull the ship up onto the beach and then careen the ships. Now, this is for anyone who wishes to know. Careening means basically pulling a ship and allowing it to tilt to one side. So the hull on the other side gets exposed, and it's a way of cleaning the hulls, the underside. Now, this was essential as barnacles. These were wooden hulled ships, so barnacles used to stick quite easily to the ships, and unless they were scraped off, they used to slow down the ship. So it made the ship rather vulnerable to any kind of attackers. Now, in due course, the English set up some thatch huts somewhere out here, and they began to do some sort of ship repair. But this method of pulling a ship up and then doing one side and then tilting it over onto the other side. This was a very tedious kind of way, because you could do only half the ship at a time, and it was also there was also strong chance of damaging the ship's hull when it tilted, so it had to be done very carefully. So the next thing that the English did was they created a mud slip basin. Now, mud slip basin is nothing but a hollow dug into the ground, and into which at spring tide you can float a ship. And because the subsequent tides for the next 15 days will be generally lower, so you can keep that ship there inside that ditch and keep it vertical, and then keep working on it. Of course, there'd be water inside the ditch, inside the mud slip basin, but that was something they had to bear. The mud slip basin was approximately out here at this point. So the ship had to be then taken out in the next spring tide, when once again the tide would be highest, and so it went that way. Meanwhile, sorry, the East India Company, they since they were in Surat, and there were good carpenters and shipbuilders in Surat, they convinced a they convinced a family of shipbuilders to move base to Bombay. So eventually, slowly, those they began to have expert shipbuilders and ship repairers. Today, it's the same family which you know as the Wadia Group. It was the same set of people that came from Surat, their ancestors and forefathers, and they started doing the ship repair out here. And so, why was it important to do ship repair? The thing was, in those days, these were all wooden-hulled ships. They were not that strong. And in the long voyage between London and India, there would be some storms, there would be some engagement with hostile powers, pirates, all kinds of people. So there would be both storm damage as well as action damage by the time they came back, and there was a need to keep those ships in good form, because everything depended on the ship connectivity. Since the land route was out of question, and obviously there were no airlines in those days, it was a long voyage for ships to go around the Cape of Good Hope and then go up Africa and reach Europe. So everything depended on the ships, right from their the trade goods to relief manpower for the elements that were in India. So there was no way they could allow this sea connection to break. Then, so another, then as time passed, the British decided to build this little thing out here. Now, this was, sorry. This little thing was, at that time it was called the mole. They used it as a landing pier for the goods and personnel. But if you see this line here, this is the low water mark, this one. Now that you can see this pier didn't even go right up till the low water mark. So which means that if it was anything less than high tide, a ship couldn't approach the pier. So the ship had to anchor somewhere out here where there was deep water, transfer people and goods to boats. They would go ashore, and they would also have to stop somewhere here, and then they would have to walk about half a mile of slush and water, ankle deep water, before they could get. So Obviously, this was not a very satisfactory arrangement. So when the shipbuilders came from Surat, Lauji Nasarwanji was the first one. He was probably used to convert that mudslip basin, which was out here, into a proper dry dock. So Bombay, this mudslip basin, which was here, and later became the Bombay dock. I'll show you some photos of the Bombay dock. And once the dock became operational, it gave the yard a very significant advantage, because the dock was made in 3 parts. So they called it upper, middle, and lower dock. Lower dock means closest to the gate. So the lower dock would have been somewhere out here, closest to the sea. The lower and middle dock, they were used for ship repair. And now the upper dock, which was out here, that could be used for shipbuilding. So now they had an advantage. They could not only repair 2 ships at a time, but they could also keep building ships out there, because they needed ships for the protection of Bombay. So not only was this a significant advantage from the point of view of shipbuilding and repair, but it was also a strategic advantage to the English. Now, in the 18th and 19th centuries, both times there were wars in Europe, Anglo-French wars, that invariably had the spillover into the Indian Ocean. So when they had the, please bear in mind that apart from the English, there were the Portuguese, there were the Dutch, and there were the French. Now the French had a fairly powerful navy compared to the other two. And in one engagement of Madras, the English fleet took a battering. The French fleet also suffered some damage, but they had carried the day. So eventually both fleets retired to get repaired. While the English fleet had to only come back to Bombay for repair, the French had to go all the way down to Mauritius for any kind of repair. So the English, they managed to get repaired and turned around, and they came out quickly, and they dominated the ocean while the French were still sitting in Mauritius getting repaired. So the strategic advantage that it gave to the English, to the British at that time, that carries forward to this day. That is, for any significant naval operations, any meaningful presence that you want to exert over the ocean, you must have a professional dockyard nearby, a dedicated professional dockyard nearby, where you can immediately send your ship for repair, get it repaired quickly, and come back fast. Otherwise, it's a very difficult situation. If you have to send your ships halfway around the world to get repaired, you will never be able to dominate the ocean. So that is an important lesson in maritime strategy that holds for till this day. So that was the landing pier and the Bombay dock. These were the 2 first things. And in this area, they set up some thatched roofed sheds for carrying out marine repair. To give you a perspective of what the dock looked like, this is what I meant. It was in 3 different parts. If you can see, this part is, and this part, they're significantly different. So between them, they put some watertight gates, and out here, this side also. So the upper part could be sealed off, and the ship could be manufactured there, built, and the remaining part could be, used for repair. This is the gate of the upper dock. If you go down to the dockyard sometime, you can actually see this thing. So this and another one on this side, that it will be pulled shut and it would close. Sorry. Okay.
So we are slightly tight on time, about 5 to 6 minutes.
All right, fine. So I'll jump forward. So now, with time, this the pier that was probably this long at one point of time, that was extended further so that it became a proper landing spot. And this part of the bay was delineated with the proper wharfage so that it could accommodate a large number of merchant as well as naval ships. So with that, this part became the official landing area, and this was the port of Bombay as it existed for a number of years. Subsequently, after in 1813, the British Crown took away the exclusive rights of trade from the East India Company. So then suddenly trade began to increase, and eventually the Bombay Port Trust came up, and the official port of Bombay shifted that side. So this, what we have out here, this later became the wet basin for the use of the Navy, and a small torpedo dock was added somewhere out here for small boats. Now, if you see these buildings, there was a jail, there was a hospital, there were all kinds of things, including, significantly, there was an opium warehouse. Opium at that time was extremely important to the British because much of their trade depended on the sale of opium. So when we talk of the British rule in India, we must realize that it was also funded by drugs. The drugs were being sold. These buildings no longer exist. But if you look at the location of the old customs house, it is approximately, it would be somewhere out here. So the idea was that ships would offload their people. They would walk down to the customs house, get themselves cleared and out. So that was the genesis of the dockyard at that time. Now, later, the need came up for a second dock because just one ship could be repaired at a time. So this second dock, this is called Duncan Dock. This was created in 1807. And in 1808, the first ship that was made here, that was the first ship also made for the Royal Navy, called HMS Minden. I'll tell you a little bit about it. But significantly, what was remarkable about this dock is that when it was made, it was, everybody called it the finest example of marine architecture in the British Empire. Because the engineers who made it, they used Indian stonemasons, they recognized the strengths. They could do intricate joinery of rock. So they used those skills to make it, and it's really tightly jointed together. So this is Duncan Dock. This came up after Bombay Dock, and this was HMS Minden. It was built 1809 in Duncan Dock, and was the first ship built for the Royal Navy, built by Jamshedji Bomanji Wadia. This is a model of the ship which can be seen in the museum, the Vastu Sangrahalaya. And what was remarkable about the ship was that it was not only built by an Indian designer, and Indian workers, but it was also built with Indian-made materials. So the first ship ever built of Indian teak, because at that time oak was running short in England, so they agreed to build one of teak. So this was the very first ship built of teak, and when they made it, they realized the significant advantages of teak. So Indian material, Indian workmen, Indian designer, the whole thing, we should be proud of this. And what is most interesting about this ship was when the ship took part as HMS Minden in the American War of Independence, the American national anthem was written on board this ship by an American who had been detained there. He saw, this is the bombardment of Fort McHenry, and he was so inspired when he saw this American flag flying in the middle of that bombardment that he penned down this poem, which later became the Star Spangled Banner. Other ships were also made. This was HMS Cornwallis. They were significant because significant things were done. Treaty of Nanking was signed on board that ceded Hong Kong to England. And this was HMS Asia, one of the largest ships built at that time, second-rate ship. Second-rate does not mean it was bad, it was the number of guns it carried. This was the flagship in the Battle of Navarino, where this photograph, this painting shows it engaging two hostile ships at a time. The Ottomans were defeated and Greece was liberated. Now, I'm showing you these because these are photographs of traditional shipbuilding techniques which are currently in use. They're used for building the country craft, but all these techniques have carried forward from the techniques used by Jamshedji Bomanji in his time. So these are all age-old techniques which were once used by the dockyard in making ships, and they continue to be used in different places because dockyard does not build ships anymore. So these things can be seen if you go down to the traditional shipbuilding yards. These were also the Indian sailing vessels that were built in the dockyard at that time. The Gurab, Galivat, they were similarly built in the yard. So it was not just the Western designs, there were Indian design ships also being made. This is a photograph of HMS Trincomalee, as you see. Why I'm showing this is because this is one thing that we can be proud till today. This is the second oldest warship afloat in the world. This is what she looks like today. She, with all due credit being given to the British, they have completely restored the ship, and it can be visited in Hartlepool, UK, where that's a permanent home. The remarkable thing was that when she was being restored, they found that many of her original timbers were intact. This was made of teak. So many of those original timbers were intact even 200 years later. So that is one of the very remarkable things. Today, the dockyard has expanded widely. What you see here is the wet basin as seen in this photograph. And you can see this is a photograph of 1970. Is already a lot of construction buildings have come, and this breakwater has come. So the original yard that was set up in those days has expanded to much larger scale, which is being used today. So where does it what does it mean for us today? It is, one is that the old docks that were built then are continued to be used to this day. We have added more docks. We continue that tradition. This is a photograph of cruiser graving dock, where the multiple dockings are shown in this picture. The type of ships have changed. There are no longer those wooden sailing ships like HMS Trincomalee and others. What you have is completely today's technology, and naturally the skills have to be updated over the years. So today, what it means is here, like this is a gas turbine being removed. Here, this is a similar photograph. Today's ships are powered by gas turbines. So those kind of skills are required. Today, we have to deal with submarines. So here again, the set of skills required are completely different. Here are some view files of the kind of work that is done today in the docket. Is all ship repair. Here's a gas turbine being refitted. This is a shaft being put back or removed, and shaft being turned. This is underside of ships. Of course, most of you have seen this, but I'm just showing you these to give you an idea that things started where, and they have reached. We've come such a long way. The yard by itself has seen so many changes. It has seen the complete evolution of the Indian Navy. It started with the Bombay Marine, and today, we have come so far. It is really unbelievable. This is what the yard looks like today. That original landing pier is just this little part out here, and that breakwater that I showed you earlier was somewhere here. This is South Breakwater now. So the complete advancement has taken place, but one thing remains. It is the tradition that has been built up, at least over these couple of 100 years. That is what carries forward. For anyone who serves in the yard, whether it's a normal, ordinary worker, and it is very difficult for them. Ship repair is a extremely strenuous, uncomfortable kind of occupation. So it's very difficult for them. These guys are not paid much, so they have to live very far off. They live in, other end of Mumbai. They take a train at 4 o'clock in the morning, sleep in the train, reach the yard by about 7, start working. In the evening, they go back. By the time he reaches home, it is 11 or 12. He sleeps for a little bit, comes back. The whole cycle continues. It's a very, very, difficult kind of thing for them. We don't appreciate the kind of work that the men do, but they are carrying forward this tradition. They are carrying forward what Jamshedji, Bomanji, and others they did in those days. And with all the limitations, when a ship needs help, the dockyard is always there. So that's it. Thank you from my side.
Thank you, Commodore Tiwari, for especially, you could stop sharing, sir, and just being very understanding and keeping on time. For those who are listening, if we actually went on to describe all the portions, we'll be here for a few hours. And then in addition to that, so sorry, there was a little audio issue. I trust you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So allow me to now introduce our second panelist, a distinguished faculty, Engineer Saptarshi Basu. He is a DMIT alumnus and also what is present day MRI, Emery. He has risen to the rank of chief engineer. He's sailed in a long time. If I read the complete bio, that will take away from his fascinating presentation. But let me tell you, he's also an internationally renowned speaker and paper presenter. He has taken a great interest in India's rise as a global maritime superpower. He has a fascinating presentation taking you not from the modern time, but back to the earlier time. And I invite Shibasu to present Sir, I'll request you also to try and keep to slightly less. I know you have a lot to speak, but about 25 minutes will be a fascinating time. Then we can discuss. The screen is yours, Basu sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And as you have rightly said, that I have a task of coming for a journey of 7,000 years plus. So I will convey my gratitude to all present, and I'll directly skip to where it matters, that is the presentation. And I'll now start sharing the screen, if it is okay. So let me see. It goes. Okay. So yeah. So I'll share the screen, and then I'll go straight to the presentation. Sure. So, gentlemen, I'd like, while I'm sharing the screen, I'd like to make certain statements before I get on with my presentation. First statement is that India has been the greatest maritime superpower and the longest reigning superpower in the history of mankind. Very contrary to the popular belief, as people would like to have you that we were not a predominantly seafaring nation. And as the Admiral had remarked that they had forgotten to probably put the maritime-minded nation. We were predominantly maritime-minded, right from our scriptures and our Vedas to even Ramayana, Mahabharata, no matter what you go through, it was maritime in nature. Second thing I would like to state is that not only we were great maritime, had great maritime tradition, we were in this position predominantly due to our geolocation. Here I would like to basically talk about two theorists who are very, very significant in the naval domain. One is Admiral Rousseau-Castex of the French Navy, Admiral Wolfgang Wagner, and also Admiral Thayer Mahan. All of them stated that the rise and fall of civilization is dependent on the maritime power of the country. And rightly so. I think I am having some issues with my presentation. Whatever. Also, not only is the country's future or its position in the world determined by its maritime prowess, it is also determining how the country evolves and falls and rises as per the part of its trade. So India, the reason it prospered in the ancient world, and it was called the golden bird, the Sone Kichadiya proverbial, was because it prospered from an enormous sea trade, which dates back to 7,000 BC, not 3,000, even much before by that, because by 3,000 BC, we already had, let us say, dockyards like Lothal. Our scriptures in Rig Veda and pre-Harappan concepts, they discuss, let us say, the maritime structure of India. So we were much before that. And lastly, we descended from our predominant position of global superpower when our maritime structure or maritime ability to trade as well as defend our shores declined. Right from the peak in the 11th century, where the Rajendra Chola created the greatest maritime empire in the history, contemporary history, right from, let us say, Chola Mandalams from Sri Lanka to right up to Bali, and few people also extended westwards. From that position, when the Chinese treasure fleets came trading in, we became a tributary. The Zamorin kings were enslaved by the Chinese Treasure Fleet Admiral Zhang He. And after that, there has been a steady decline. But Indian shipbuilding was still held sway. And right up to Bombay dockings, as the people were saying, we were manufacturing the first inline vessel of the Admiralty, British Admiralty fleet. So, and this was the state of affairs till somewhere in 1746, British passed an ordinance, essentially outlawing Indian shipbuilding. I am having some serious issues with my presentation.
Mr. Basu, your slides are not changing.
Yes, sir. That is what I'm having an issue with.
Basu sir, since your presentation has about 200 plus slides, maybe there's a lag. You could just directly indicate couple of slides and share in another 15-20 minutes your highlights. That will help.
Okay, sir. So I'll just pause the share, and why I'm having an issue, I don't know, because the presentation was running fine before. I'll go to the slide sorter view. That should make it okay. So I'll go to the slide sorter view and then share again. Then that makes things a little easier. Okay. So I would start with the fact that the position of India as striding the maritime superhighway of trade, which happened between predominantly the European sector in the Roman sections and right up to China, which was called this land of the silk. Incidentally, silk was also developed in India. Few very important thing is that, which I would like to, okay, I think it is resume share as, yeah. Few important things which I would like to tell my audience here is that there is a common fallacy that Harappan civilization and Mohenjo-daro, which is called the Hill of the Dead, they essentially have been eroded or defeated by invading Aryans who brought the technology of iron with them. Things couldn't have been more removed from the truth. In fact, they were Bronze Age civilizations, and Iron Age, as of the world, was given birth in somewhere near Hyderabad. And Indians were the pioneer in steelwork. They gave the world the rest of the Iron Age. The Harappan civilization predominantly collapsed by being a Bronze Age civilization by what is commonly known as the Bronze Age collapse. And Indian civilization for shipping was much before that. We invented shipping before anybody did. And our ships were about 10 to 15 times larger. The statistics goes that our ships were something around 800 cubits. That was the measurement, which translates to somewhere around 200 meters approximately. And the passenger carrying capacity, if you see a book by on Indian ancient maritime heritage by Radha Mukund Mukherjee, states that we could carry more than 5,000 passengers on an ancient ship. That is quite important structure, facet to understand. And also, had Indian shipping not been there, I'm just making certain important conclusions given by the constant of the time, we wouldn't have been having the entire civilization of southern Sri Lanka, which is called the Sinhalese. We wouldn't have ceded the island of Java, Sumatra, the present Indonesia, Malaysia, and the entire, let us say, what we call as the southeast China, Indochina, as they call it, or that entire peninsula, entire southern belly of the West Asian supercontinent, East Asian supercontinent, that is Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and all other countries put together. The entire civilization of Khmer, as well as the Srivijaya and the Java empires, were ceded by the Malaya, that is the Odia as well as the Bengali populations put together. So this is the
Basu Sahib, if you stop
facts.
sharing the screen, I will pin you. You can speak. Your narration is fantastic. So if you stop sharing the screen, I think you can just tell the story. It will be quite captivating.
Okay, sir, I'll do that. Yeah. So the entire civilization in these areas wouldn't have happened. And that is one of the very important factors which people forget, that not only we were a ruling maritime superpower in the ancient history, we gave birth to an entire civilization. During the Bronze Age collapse, the Phoenicians were called the sea people. They wiped out all the civilization because it was something like a hunger food riot when all the civilizations of ancient Mesopotamia, Akkadian, and empires were collapsing and crumbling altogether. During that time, what happened was that the Phoenicians gathered several boats, and they were called the sea people. And they were joined by hordes of hungry and disturbed people who were writing against those civilizations for food and booty. And that took away most of the civilization that was eroded from the surface of the earth. This basically took away the markets of consumption to whom the Harappan civilization exported. That led to a little bit of the decline in the revenue and pauperization, I would say. Secondly, there was this period around the Bronze Age collapse was a period of immense climatic change, due to which the river Saraswati, which was the major area around which the most of these civilizations our cities were thriving, that it dried up, it changed course. So Indus Valley, per se, the civilization, a lot of areas were simply abandoned due to lack of water. Also, due to this, several important ports like Lothal, which was on the bank of this estuarian connection of river Saraswati, that got disconnected from water. So this was a momentary drop. But what happened after that was even more interesting. The same people transmigrated to the Gangetic Plain and elsewhere. And they set up detailed structures of society, and the entire west peninsula of India, both east and west, right up to the Sri Lankan peninsula, was having large ports, which were able to produce goods of such exquisiteness that we were able to export these goods for equivalent value in gold. If you see the book called The Periplus of the Etherian Sea. What is Etherian? Etherian in Latin refers to red. So after the first water deluge, which happened, which basically took over the lot of land masses, and then we have the realignment of the Indian shores, Red Sea became a very important trading post for Roman Empire. Now we think of multimodal transport as some invention of containerization. Earlier days, the multimodal transport was very much there, and it was given by a contract written in papyrus, which is still preserved in one of the universities in Gujarat, which says how cargo from Gujarat will be transported by a Roman ship to a port in Red Sea, from which it will be taken by camelback to Alexandria. From Alexandria, it will again sail on another ship right up to Rome. So multimodal transport was very much there. Now, going back to our maritime heritage, in what followed after this, and when we basically invented fire and we invented the Iron Age came from down south, not down up north. If you technically see, there is no iron mines near the Caspian Sea or in the Mediterranean area. Much of the iron which actually comes in Russia is in Siberia. It is nowhere near where the so-called hypothetically the proverbial what we say the Aryans should have come crashing with their swords swinging down the horseback and then destroying our Mohenjo-daro and Harappan civilization. Things couldn't be even more removed from the truth. In fact, Mohenjo-daro's and Harappan civilization, the Lord Pashupati, God, Lord Shiva was adapted into the Vedic culture, which followed the Harappan civilization. Right in the birth of the Iron Age, started the Vedic civilization, which was also taking place, but while in the similar circumstances, somewhere around 3000 BC, and the texts were being conceptualized. And somewhere around 4500 BC, we had the initial concepts of the Vedic scripts being written and all the 4 Vedas coming into existence, and different forms of weapon and shipbuilding, very particularly shipbuilding in form of Rig Veda being written in detail. And if you see the basic concept of our religion, Lord Vishnu is in Shir Sagar. He is basically floating afloat a snake which is basically making a coil, and all around it is river water. And when you are basically talking about Samudra Manthan, you are talking about gems which is underwater. So this is called Neptunian theory of creation, which basically talks about Earth being a large mass of water from which gems have been marked out in order for enriching the, let us say, civilization. Then in Ramayana, if you see Lord Sugriv, after becoming the overlord and king after death of King Bali, giving direction to monkeys, and then he talks of Suvarna Deepa, monkeys to go there. So what is Suvarna Deepa? Suvarna Deepa is basically the Indochina area, and all the reference to this Suvarna Deepa is the land of the silk and all these places where gold is mined. Mind you, China had a lot of gold mines in ancient, right from the Xia and the Shah kingdoms, and from those times also gold mining was one of the principal export of China. So Chinese gold and silk would come. Silk mining, sericulture being developed in India migrated to China. And most of this migration did not happen over the Himalayas. Himalaya was too high and almost impassable and very cold in those times. So beast of burden would not be able to go to China through that. So the only though China, Nepal, or what we could would like to call by geography, as our next door neighbor, we should have been able to probably excavate a tunnel and do trade. It wouldn't have happened due to the sheer impossibility and impracticability of such product. People found it much easier to go via the sea route and right up to Japan and Vietnam and other people. Then there are a lot of references in Mahavanso regarding the a hermit from Bengal, a Brahmin, landing in those areas. And then you have, even in the Mahabharata, Arjun going and defeating the Nagadev and then marrying the Nag Kanya. Now, people would like to think that how a human being can marry a serpent. It is quite astonishing, because Nagas were not exactly serpent. The ability of now, who were Nagas? If you see Nagaland, if we talk about what we understand as Nagaland, the people of it, more or less Mongoloid feature in Northeast. Similarly, these anthropologically Mongoloid people who were worshipping dragons were essentially referred as the Naga people. So if you have, right, the Vietnamese, the Cambodians, right up to Chinese, they would have been known in ancient world as the Nagas and Naga Kanyas and Naga Purushas, and they also fought alongside the Mahabharata war. So there is a vast maritime connection. For the structure of the vessel, the web frames, the transverse bulkheads, the outside stabilizers, and watertight connections, these are mentioned in detail in our text in Rig Vedas. What is very important, relevant as of today, that we are today talking about various debates in going on JNU, which is quite laughable according to us, because people have very little understanding of our heritage and culture. It is Manusmriti, the so-called, within quotes, the most so-called controversial text, which laid down the foundation of the entire maritime law, arbitration, maritime insurance, which used to give determine how much compensation is to be given to the shipper in case the goods are lost out at sea. So first COGSA, or Carriage of Goods Act at Sea, was given in Manusmriti. And in Manusmriti, it was given in detail that if by the action of the captain and the action of the seafarers, the goods have not been spoiled due to their lack of due diligence, then it would have been not payable as a fine to the master as well as the crew of the ship. Similarly, if you would see in much later time, in the city of victory, which is called Vijayanagara Samrajyam, in the contemporary Middle Ages of Indian contemporary India, the act of Krishnadev Raya to give compensation to an Arabian horse seller by showing the tail of the dead horse which he has tried to bring to his shore but died in passage, basically reflect to similar practices. So this was basically the foundation of in the ancient maritime tradition, which is there in the scriptures in the Vedic kingdom. Now let us come down to the various implements which was being used. And now I will like to burst a few fallacy. They say the cartography was done by the buccaneers and the British spirit of explorations. I would like to beg all our audience to think, if right in 3000 plus BC, we could navigate right up to Alexandria, our artifacts, our coinage through numismatic evidences have found in Mayan civilization, which was later on excavated, looted by the Spanish conquistadors, and they have been displayed so in various areas. Our fabric have been found in papyrus have been found in the Egyptian mummies, and how they could have gone throughout the rest of the world without the help of a map. Any mariner worth his salt will know that he will need geodetic position fixing, time fixing, and waypoint fixing if he has to navigate, not wander aimlessly on the seas, and then he will have to reach certain position in a map, offload the cargo and trace the same position back. So it was not the Greenwich Mean Time. Indian cartography right in the way back was extremely well developed. And if you take some modern day thinkers like Dr. Rajiv Malhotra's understanding, these people there has been a fact of civilizational intellectual proprietary theft of Indian intellect, that people have simply put European names on top of it. There was no act of exploration per se. It might have been, I would say, rediscovery of the cartographic maps, which might have been taken from India, but the Indian cartography was well established. Secondly, we would also talk about the Mariner's Compass. Mariner's Compass is supposed to be developed by the famous explorer Marco Polo, and it is magnet basically aligning to the geomagnetic meridian of the Earth, tilting 23.5, and then you have the calculations for magnetic corrections throughout the chart. Technically speaking, if you go by our history in Yukti Kalpataru, it is clearly mentioned that we have Matsya Yantra. And this Matsya Yantra is also there in Rig Veda. It is a floating piece of magnetized rock floating in fish oil, and in a special kind of patra, out of which from the location of the sun you mark the direction. And no matter where you tilt the patra, the fish stays in the same direction. It's called Matsya Yantra. That was mariner's compass. This is the second fact. Third fact, which I would like to, yes, I would like to say something.
Yeah, you have about 3 to 4 minutes because we already passed 7:40, sir. If you just present your third point, that will be great.
Okay. Now, these are important points which I would like to present. Now, I will come to the destruction of the Indian shipping and why from 34% to 52%, as explained by Dr. Angus Madison in his OECD study. That was the contribution of India to the global trade. We went to 1.18%. First was the invasion from the north. After the death of King Harsha, India broke into several principalities with who were prosperous but continuously quarreling among themselves. Like all civilizations have gone through this warring states situation. It has been there in Japan, it has been there in China, and we are no strangers to them. This was our time of warring states. So what happened? Invaders started attacking us. After the Arabs or the Ottoman Turk basically captured Constantinople, they were very much able to interlocate between the trade between the India and Europe and Romans, thereby enjoying a predominant position till the Battle of Lepanto, where they were summarily defeated, during which few very barbaric rulers from the Umayyad dynasty decided to launch an invasion. And mind you, these invasions don't come by the mountains and Hindu Kush mountains as was traditionally thought. This invasion very much came by the sea. Muhammad bin Qasim attacked the port of Sindh, what is called as Port Qasim as of today in Pakistan, and launched the attack on Raja Dahir for protecting the the family of the Prophet Muhammad. And bin Qasim killed about 50,000 people in one day in Brahmanabad and all these people. This happened through this route. After this, hordes of invader came and they basically damaged the hinterland of India. What was very important was 40,000 odd temples were being broken. Why temples are important to maritime trade? What is the connection? These temples were financial institutions where, let us say, traders guild will meet. Till date, in Chola inscription, most of the South Indian temples will had 500 different guilds, and each and every temple was maintained by a guild, traders guild, which used to keep their money inside the temples. Now, these people were not motivated so much so by the religion per se, but very much by the greed of the loot of the wealth which was stored in those temples, which caused the temples being broken and the wealth being looted. And also by the devastating effect what Attila had on the Western Roman Empire. These invasions basically drove away the most of the artisans and the creators and craftsmen from the central hinterland of India. Thereby, our ability to make goods, which was most coveted by the rest of the world, started declining. As the maritime trade started declining and our ability to protect our craftsmen, our physicians, our artisans who would make such goods, our wealth, our export and balance of payment of export started declining rapidly. With those balance of trade being declining, these invaders who basically set up principalities were basically illiterate, uneducated, and barbarous brutes, having absolutely no understanding of what maritime ventures or very, very complicated system of maritime trade, the institutions like banking system, earlier days banking system, or insurance, or let us say traders and commercial exchange and seals, etc. meant. So they neglected it. So we started falling. And due to which what happened, by the turn of the 13th century, Ming Empire rose and they brought in the treasure fleet. While right in the 11th century, we were dominating the entire Indian Ocean, from which we got our name as Indian Ocean. The Ming started the fleet, the 700 strong fleet of ships started, they made 7 important voyages and they destroyed our hegemony. The Chinese destroyed our hegemony right starting from Singapuram and the Bali and Sumatra, right from the Bali Islands straight up to let us Sri Lanka, which is summarily captured and destroyed, razed the cities to ground. And they also defeated the king of Zamorin. After Zamorin, when they tried to move north, they were summarily defeated by the Indian kings, the Keralite Pandyan kings, which were ruling them. After which he decided to take a detour to what is present-day Somalia. And then he went in for a Hajj. And after when he returned, he was too old. And after the death of the second Hongle emperor, the Ming fleet was burnt by God's grace by the successor of the emperor to ground, and there was no more treasure voices. After that came tremendous amount of piracy in the western sector by the Jats and the eastern sector by the Burmese, who were called the Arakan. And they were called the menace of the sea, due to which Akbar tried to establish a Novara, very similar to the Mauryan principles of the superintendency of the ship. And that is how we have most of the terms today in shipping, where we call Lashkar, we call Khalasi, and all these words, these ranks were from the Akbar's system. And he set up Murshid Quli Khan, and this Akbar's treasurer set up all these system of revenue and tax collection, what we call as parganas, and that is how we have 24 parganas in South. Still, by the time we were able to have, we reduced from a blue water enterprising world power navy, we went to brown water. From brown water we went to coastal, and from coastal we went to predominantly a defensive navy. That is when Europe had its awakening. The Christendom became very strong. They had the Treaty of Westphalia, the state of structure changed, and they had huge resources on their side. The banking system evolved in Bank of England, and they launched from the Treaty of Tordesillas, they launched invasions into the various parts, and the Buchanans, with very barbaric people like Vasco da Gama, started making inroads in India, and they established their trading post in India. And after a series of war, they basically defeated the Indian kings, and they took the trading rights from India, Indian ship owners and Indian princes, and hence state-owned shipping died with the Europeans. But still Indian shipbuilding was very much alive due to its superiority in construction. From 1640, Britishers embarked in a legislative, let us say, war against the Indian shipping, where they outlawed the import of the Indian goods into British by Indian seamen. They said only British seamen and British master were allowed to carry goods into port of England. From there, unsafe, or rather unsavory trade practices and undercutting trade practices were done. Even when these people were not, even then also, Traders Guild will not stop giving up their maritime ventures, and Parsi dockings will still build good first in the line ships, as my initial speaker was saying. Then they outlawed shipbuilding in total by an ordinance of 1764, which reads that any person building a ship more than 40 cubits without the prior permission of a commissioner will be subjected to 40 lashings of a ratan, that means koda, or a whip, leather whip. And he would be subjected to several financial penalty. Now, why did the British do that? Because by that time, they had understood the concept of ironclad, and they were able to make, they have the dreadnought movement before the First World War, somewhere around 1909, where steel shipbuilding overtook the wooden shipbuilding and the skill which was there in the Indian subcontinent. And thereby, by that time, we had significantly been colonized, and we had a repressive British regime and series of famines engineered in order to kill the Indian shipping.
So you'll have to wind up.
Yeah, so Indian shipping was wiped out. And after independence, Selandia was Selandia was the first ship due to which we celebrate the Maritime Day as of today. Today, we are the 18th among the, let us say, various seafaring nations. we have our national fleet age somewhere around 18 to 19, which is a high risk range. Our contribution to world trade has increased from 1.18 initially to, let us say, 3.5 plus percent. But even today, we have the most of the coastal seafaring or shipowning done by the foreign shipowners in terms of Masa and FOSMA. And Indian shippers, seafarers find it more honorable to sail in foreign ships than Indian ships. Concluding, India's shipping is like an endangered species. I would call it the proverbial elephant, which had once a glorious past and uncertain present and probably a dark future, if not course correction taken place. Though there are visionary actions being taken off late, like Sagarmala scheme and others, but much remains to be done in terms of both naval as well as maritime trade, so that we can recover or reclaim our past glory to Vishwaguru, and that will happen through the maritime route only. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We must really acknowledge your passion. And I know one of the challenges in the webinar mode, the time is a constraint. In fact, I am going to chop down my summing up. What I'm going to do, with the permission of the organizers, I'm going to straight away look at there are only two questions which are still open. One is a very direct question to Basu Sahab. Have you authored a book? I'm sure we can pass it on to the participants. That is the question. The second one I will take on, which Mr. Wesley Pereira mentioned, that are there any action plans to protect maritime heritage of India, and how many states have museum? I can give a very confident answer. I was looking after the Maritime History Society for 6 years. The government of India has a very ambitious large-scale project near the original site of Lothal. The National Maritime Heritage Complex is coming with collaboration from many places, directed by the Sagarmala Division of Ministry of Surface Transport, Ports and Waterways. And in addition, there are museums ranging from in Odisha to Bengal, a boat museum to Mumbai, many other places. So it's not as dark as it seems. I will probably just ask your indulgence for just 3 minutes, and I will just share. I won't take my 10 minutes because I would still want to honor. So, Patil sir, can I take just a short summing up?
Sure, sir. Yeah, you would like to hear the inciting ideas.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just. This is. I had finished earlier. Now this logically should be right in the beginning. But I think I'm leaving this question whenever we talk of India's maritime heritage. Why history in the first place? Before we talk of people wanting to rewrite history, and what does the word maritime mean? And I have a problem which comes from the English language. Maritime is an adjective. It's not a noun. And very often people use the word maritime as a noun. So there are many things maritime in our nature. I'm going to rush through some slides. This is what we talked about, how the India was formed. Speakers have talked about our connections with Southeast Asia, the whole idea of the Erythraean Sea, connections to the West. We mistakenly called it the Roman connection, but actually it was to Red Sea. But what was very interesting is trade would come from Rome to Alexandria, sail up the river Nile, get off by camels to a place in Berenike, and then catch the Red Sea and catch the monsoon. So that was, India was connected to the West and the East. And Basu Sahab mentioned about the merchant guilds. Please, the participants, especially young scholars, read about the Tamil merchant guilds funded by the temples. Temples were the venture capitalists till the 13th century, not the kings. Okay, the temples funded the maritime voyages. I want to bring this close to today. We have been celebrating the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. What is the legacy that we are proud of? And I'm sorry to disagree with many. It is not a dark age. We have a resurgent and a vibrant maritime India. I am very excited with what is called the Amrit Kal going forward. Because sea power and sovereignty, India uses the word sagar, security and growth for all in the region. We are collaborating with countries, other coastal countries, to bring collaborative maritime competence. Read the Maritime India Vision 2030. We aspire to actually become the top 10 nations in shipbuilding. We have traditional skills, and the future is maritime growth. And then let's not forget, whenever we talk of anything related to the sea, the maritime world has myriad hues, multiple frames, many learnings. This is not an actual image that I saw at sea, it's a created image. But in 1995, one day on passage south of Kanyakumari, when I showed my captain, the sky in every octave was a different color. That's the maritime world, and that's our Indian waters. It may not be India's ocean, but India is the most geographically prominent feature in the Indian Ocean. And that's what I want to say. What do we need to do? We need to continue to promote conversations like this. We may be tight on time. I have the capacity to go for 9 hours, 12 hours if people stay awake, but that's not what is popular. So even in bite sizes, I have been trying to do that. But my compliments to the Institute of Engineers India, to the Navi Mumbai chapter, to the President Dr. Thackeray Saab, to Commander Bhandarkar, to Patil Saab, for giving us this opportunity. I'm sorry, I wish we had more time, but if we have whetted the appetite of the audience, I think we have been successful. Back to you, Patil sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, you have very diligently moderated the forum, bringing up the enchanting ideas, starting from 100 million year old journey till a complete changeover, and especially the final slide which you showed, the myriad hues, that was amazing. So other speakers also contributed regarding the fall of Harappan civilization till the entire transformation of maritime fraternity, and also we saw a complete journey of naval dockyard till date. So that was a really fruitful discussion. Now I would like to introduce one more eminent member, Dr. Samir Chandrakant Nimkar. He is a former honorary secretary for Belapur Local Center since 2018 till 2021. Basically, he is holding a BTech, later MTech, and also a PhD in chemical engineering. He is a BEE certified energy auditor. Working as a lecturer at BVIT Navi Mumbai since December 1999, coordinator of Advanced Diploma in Industrial Safety at BVIT. He is also a panel member of interview committee and a faculty member of Reliance Industries Limited at Nagothane and Patalganga. He has published 19 papers in international journals and authored 2 books. So over to you, Dr. Samir Nimkar, for your vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. It has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful event. On the behalf of III Navi Mumbai Local Center, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our President, Dr. H.O. Thackeray, for giving his address. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to our today's keynote speakers, that is Commodore Sanjay Tiwari and Engineer Saptarshi Basu, for their wonderful presentation about the glorious maritime history, which is very much interesting and very wonderful. So thank you, sir, for enlightening us. My sincere thanks to Commodore Dr. Johnson Odakkal for his job as a moderator. I know it is a very tricky job, and sir, he have done it very wonderfully. Thank you, sir. I would also like to thank our past chairman, Mr. K.K. Varkedkar, for delivering a welcome address, and engineer Mr. Mahesh Patil for comparing this program. My special thanks to Commander Dr. Bhaskar Bandarkar, who is the chairman of Marine Engineering Division Board, for organizing such wonderful event. My sincere thanks to our headquarter technical team for providing technical support to this event. Now, last but not the least, that all the members and August gathering which is present for today's webinar, without them, it is impossible to conduct such successful events. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Samir Nimkar, sir. So, Commander Dr. Bhaskar Bandarkar, with your kind permission, shall we end this forum here?
Yeah, we call it a day. Please end the webinar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining, and I wish you a very happy New Year 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. It was a wonderful interacting with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Sir, with the permission of chair, can I end the webinar?